as you folks have received my resume now, my role with Marquette County, I've been here for going on 13 years. I've been management with the airport for the tenure. Equally, I took on the water wastewater departments back 5 years, almost 6 years ago, when the previous director retired. I took on that role. Prior to that, I was employed in Gogebic County as the airport manager there. To date, I have 30 years of county government experience, primarily, of course, working with aviation as the focal point. But even that being said, the aviation industry was not just tied in with aviation. I was engaged with both the federal government and the state on multiple levels with aeronautics, the FAA, the DOT, on several levels. So I have a really good working knowledge of how it is to work with government agencies. And then when I transitioned and accepting the additional roles with the water wastewater department, I took on additional relationships with the state of Michigan on a different role, primarily with Eagle, working with the water and the wastewater department. So in a nutshell, I've had a broad experience working on several levels with both state, local, and federal, on various levels of different agencies, whether it was directly with the federal government, the FAA, Michigan Aeronautics, Eagle, USDA, handful of different entities. So with that, I would say that I would feel I would be qualified to venture into this potential opportunity and hopefully be able to continue to excel in my career. And granted, my career is Marquette County. I've been here for, again, coming up on 13 years. I have no intentions on going to any place, regardless of the decision of this board. I'm here for the tenure. That's one thing that the board can rest assured. I am well-founded and not planning on going anyplace. My heart is in Marquette County.
Okay, thank you. So let's get started. So the board has put together a group of questions that they're going to ask all candidates here and your response to those questions. So please describe your understanding of the role of this county administrator.
Well, I would say the role of the county administrator is, it's a multifaceted role. Actually, being Marquette is so complex of a county, there's a handful of primary roles of the county administrator. One of the key ones, of course, is working directly with the board, working with them hand in hand with it, whether it be directives, strategies, policies. I would be engaged with the board. Equally, the administrator's role is going to be working with various departments, well, actually all of the departments. Being the fact that the department heads would ultimately answer to the county administrator, there has to be a good flow of communication with them, working hand in hand with them, working through issues, problems, or concerns, focusing on how to propel the county forward. Also, the county administrator is a ambassador for the county. That is one role that I think is key. Actually, all of the roles being working with the department heads and with the county commissioners directly, but I think a key one is being the ambassador, because the administrator is technically your face of the county to the community, working with the various townships, various cities, working with organizations, businesses, the state, the legislators on several different levels. So with that, just to summarize, I think the county county administrator's role is really tied to a handful of words. You know, I would be here, or the county administrator is here to advising the board on current issues, future issues, advising department heads on current and future issues. Also, there is the facilitating The administrator would be in charge of helping to facilitate directives and roles and policies with the county and management. With all of these different avenues of communication, you have to manage it all, making sure that you're looking at the full picture and able to manage everything in the best interest of the county. And again, the final piece of the puzzle is being the ambassador. Again, getting out there, working with the community and the stakeholders to ensure that Marquette County is a transparent, forward-thinking organization that the surrounding area can understand, trust, and work directly with.
Okay, thank you. What are some of the key qualifications that you have for the position of county administrator?
Well, I can lean back on my current experience. Again, as you folks know, I am the director out at Sawyer. Sawyer is quite honestly a small town. My role out there is a smaller version of an administrator. I'm administrating both water, wastewater department and the airport and the entire complex out at Sawyer. So that in and of itself, it gives me an insight, at least not necessarily the broadest insight, but it gives me an insight onto the role of an administrator. Another component is the simple fact that I've been at Marquette County for 13 years. I know a lot of the players. I'm very familiar with the current Board of Commissioners and many of the department individuals. So I equally would have a good head start running into the position, already having some relationships with department heads. Another component I would lean on is the simple fact that, again, I stressed it earlier, is I have an intimate knowledge of working with federal, state, local, community organizations. You can look at my past track record. I've been very successful with several departments currently to date, and I'm not blowing my horn, but if I don't say it, nobody does. But currently, I have, since I've been here, garnered over $59 million in grants, and that doesn't include some of the smaller projects, but $59 million, and that's not just with the airport, but that's equally with the water wastewater department. As soon as I came on board with the water wastewater department, I hit the ground running, and again, that's a whole different animal than airports. And I think that lends to my ability to transition, shifting from one position to another position. You look at an airport, water, wastewater, two different animals, but I blended right in. I took the reins and we ran with it, and since I've been there, I've been very successful with garnering grants and funding to propel KI Sawyer into what it needs to be in the coming years. We just recently, as the board is aware, we just recently implemented the grant with the USDA and Eagle to bring in a multi-million-dollar water improvement project. So that's another key component. Being in the airport industry or the aviation industry, I've equally developed relationships not just with the federal government and the state, but I've equally developed relationships across county lines. I work with all of the other airports in the UP. We're a small community. Granted, we all compete against each other for the limited resource of passengers and airline service. But I equally know how to work directly with them on airport-related issues. So I've bridged a lot of gaps with that, and I worked with, back in Gogebic County, I worked with Gogebic County, with local cities, and with Wisconsin, because Gogebic County was a multi-state airport run through both Michigan and Wisconsin. So I actually bridged the gap both on the Michigan side for funding and on the Wisconsin side for funding. So to sum it up, I think I have a pretty good understanding of the organization, the actual nuts and bolts of it. Yes, I can honestly say I don't have all of that understood as of right now, but I would feel that working directly with this board and working with the department heads over a course of, say, 60 to 90 days, I think I would be able to spool up, get the necessary information and areas that need focus. Granted, I would suspect this first few months are going to be breakneck crazy because of the lack of the administrator up to date. I know the board has taken an active role, but I still think I have the qualifications and the ability and a track record to prove that I would be able to spool up under the proper situation, working again directly with the board and department heads and the local community.
Thank you. Knowing what you know today about Marquette County, what changes would you make if hired as administrator?
What changes would I make? That's a really good question. Well, I know Marquette County is going to be facing some challenges moving forward. And granted, the changes, direct changes, are really hard to put on paper at this point, or actually to state right now. But I know Marquette County, and I know there's scenarios or issues that we're going to be facing moving forward. I think one of them, again, is everybody here is well aware of, is housing is a challenge. I think to date, I think Marquette County has taken a very active role in that. Another one is relating to employment. We all know that Marquette County is heavily dependent on a mining industry that supports a fraction of the community, and we all know mines are not forever. They have a finite amount of material, and they ultimately shut down, and there needs to be a shift in employment. So I think dealing with housing and looking at future employment development so that we can continue to grow and expand. We have seen over the last handful of years a slight uptick in population with COVID and people realizing that you can work remotely, but I think that would be another key one is to Marquette as a place to not just recreate, but to move and be able to operate. I know another one of the challenges that we face, and this is something I know all too well, and it's not necessarily the best item that I would say is something that we have to really shift and look closer at, is the forever chemicals. And I know a lot of that primarily because I work at the airport, and that's one of the components that we're faced with. I equally work with Eagle and our current consultant AECOM over at the Nagani site, the former airport. And we've worked hand in hand trying to evaluate the current conditions over there and at the airport and any future issues that we're going to have moving forward. So I think that's another component that the county is going to have to take a closer look at. It's not something that's going to go away anytime soon. We know the EPA is planning on implementing some of their new rules, their new limits in 2029. And when they do actually hit, it's going to be a big impact on the community. So if we're not prepared for that with a good plan to move forward, I think, well, we will be prepared for that. Regardless of my position as a county administrator, even as an airport operator in the water department, I would definitely be pushing that issue to the front page as well.
Thank you. In your professional career, what is your most successful accomplishment and what was your biggest failure?
Well, my most successful accomplishment. I really could not put it down as a singular accomplishment. I really couldn't. I mean, there's a multitude of things that I would say are big things over the course of my career. If I was to narrow it down to one, I would say the success of Sawyer. It's a lot of people don't see what has happened behind the scenes, and it's not just the success of airline operations or airport development. It's encompassing a broader picture. We've propelled a lot of good projects forward, which have spun off and have provided success for the airport and Marquette County. We did the project with Envoy Airlines. We invested several $1 million. We were able to garner a significant portion of that through grant dollars, which in turn saved American Airlines as a presence in Marquette County. Without them, that is a big accomplishment, and it doesn't just affect me, and I'm not carrying it as a trophy, but I'm carrying it more as how it benefited the county and the region more directly than how it was me directly affected. My biggest failure, boy, that's a hard one. That's a real hard one. You don't want to open up that particular item, but I would say biggest failure. I don't know how I can spin that somewhere. Well, honestly, I would say, looking back at my life and in my career, I don't really see any specific failures per se. Granted, I think everybody has faults. I think everybody has areas of their career where they wish they made this decision or that decision. I look back at everything I've done, and I think I've made proper steps, proper approaches to everything. I started out my career a long time ago as an aviation maintenance technician, more or less a mechanic in the industry. I made steps progressing from the mechanic with the airlines to an operator or a operations person at a small airport, my hometown airport, Ironwood Airport. That was my hometown. But when I stepped in there, I tell you, probably the first month, I told the manager there, I want your job. That's what I want, your job. And I says, but I'm going to sit back and I'm going to watch you, and when you are ready to retire, I'll take it. I'll run with it if allowed. And I did that. And then, lo and behold, Marquette County calls me, and that was a phone call that I never expected. I'm sitting in my office, and somebody calls me and says, "Hey, you should apply for a job in Marquette County." I looked at the phone to see if it was a prank, and it turned out it wasn't, and I applied. So I don't know if I can really say I had anything that I truly regret. I look back at life and say everything I've done has been good, and I propose to keep moving it forward. Again, I would say this in full disclosure: if this board chooses somebody else, I'm happy. I have no regrets staying or moving from either one. I've been completely engaged and entertained. You can ask anybody at the airport. I'm the guy who gets up in the morning and says, I can't wait to get to work. And honestly, I look forward to that. This county administrator's position is another challenge. I would hope I wouldn't fail, but I feel that I can confidently navigate the challenge. Again, working directly with all the key players. Nobody will survive or nobody will succeed unless they have a good team behind them. I would just, again, I wish I could tell you, yes, shooting out a street light when I was 15 years old and I had to pay for it. That was a bad mistake.
Okay, thank you. Question number 5. How would you respond to finding out a department head had engaged in unethical behavior at work?
Well, that would be a very interesting scenario. First off, we definitely have to engage with HR. We would definitely want to make sure all of the steps and the procedures are done adequately and correctly. Unfortunately, I've had to go through a couple scenarios at the airport and the water department where we had to go through process of elimination and termination, and it's not an easy task, but I think with that information out there, we'd definitely have to fully investigate and vet it to make sure it is accurate and correct, and make the proper decisions to correct what it is. If that required just disciplining the particular department head, or if it ultimately ended up with a removal of that person from their position, that would be the ultimate decision. We'd have to weigh it in on the facts. Again, any decision that you make, you have to take into consideration these are people, and that what you are doing in that role is going to directly affect that individual, and it's going to have a long and lasting effect on them if they have to try to redevelop a career or re-engage in the workforce someplace else. So proper vetting, proper review, proper research, go through the disciplinary actions if possible, and then ultimately, if it was inevitable that it had to end in termination, that would be the step.
Okay, thank you. Walk me through your process when solving a problem.
Well, airport has lots of problems, good problems. They're all good problems. First off, you got to really prioritize what the problem is. A lot of things can be solved relatively quickly and easily if it's a minor problem, but you're going to definitely want to evaluate what priority it is and what it affects. And then you just, honestly, it's like eating an elephant. You take one bite at a time and you start to dig into it and figure out what steps need to be done. We've gone through a lot of different avenues, both the water, wastewater, and at the airport, where we've tackled some big challenges with unfortunately big price tags that we've had to navigate. We had to evaluate the problems, strategize on what we have to do. If funding was necessary, go down the path to engage with the board to evaluate how we can proceed through it, because most problems end up costing money. They're not easily corrected with just a couple letters, but for the most part, you would evaluate it, prioritize it, lay out the proper steps that you would have to do, and then just start taking it apart until you've come to a solution that works for all parties. And again, each problem would, another component of it would depend on who all it affects. If it's a broad problem that it's not just affecting one small component of your operation, or if it's affecting the entire operation, or if it has an impact on the entire organization, but you still, again, prioritize, strategize, and then just start taking it apart piece by piece.
Thank you. How would you handle conflict in a team environment?
Conflict in a team environment. Well, I'm a strong believer in teamwork. I think that's a key role. Actually, that's one of my, I would stress that's one of my management skills, or one of my management styles. Teamwork. We need to, in a team approach, you definitely, if there's conflict, there's a solution relating to what the conflict is relating to. Every person carries a role in a team approach. Everybody has a position that they have to take, and when there's conflicts in those, there's a likelihood that two or more groups or people are pushing for either different solutions, or they're pushing for the same solution but a different approach. Again, you would want to evaluate the problem. That's a big issue, and then you, if you're in charge of it as the manager, I would definitely start by prioritizing what people are supposed to do, because again, if you have conflict, it's most likely they're all shooting for the same results. It's just how they're pushing for those results, and I would take an active role in trying to direct each player in the role that they're supposed to address, and go at it in that fashion, so that we're not pulling in opposite directions, we're all pulling in the same direction. And again, stressing to the team stressing to the organization that we all have the same end result that we're looking for. I have not found that in any of the organizations that I've worked with or even associated with, where there was an alternate end result. We're all looking, again, for a successful end result, and it's usually just coordinating with the players to find out who is the strongest in certain areas and assign them to those areas and reallocate your resource and move forward.
Thank you. What strategies would you use to ensure effective communication between different county department heads?
Well, at the airport and at the wastewater, I have an open door policy. In fact, it's open all the time. Sometimes to some detriment because people routinely come in and talk to me. And in this role, as a county administrator, it's a broader group of organizations or departments. I would start off with an open door policy. That way, every one of the department heads, whether they're the department head or even just a component of the department, that they know that they can come and talk. I think that's critical. You don't want to be an isolationist and manage from a distance. You've got to manage from within the organization so they know and they feel comfortable working with you. Equally, I would set up routine meetings, would we call them meetings or reviews or sessions where each department and their various players we would meet regularly to discuss ongoing concerns or problems or just how things are rolling, making sure that every department is being supported the best that they can. And then also trying to focus in on the end game, making sure that ultimately everybody's pulling in the same direction. My leadership role is lead by example. I would never require anybody to do something I myself would not do. And I take that very literal. I'm never too high on the ladder to do the smallest job. You watch when I come into the airport, if there's something on the ground, I'm picking it up. It's not appropriate that I would walk past it and then tell somebody else to go pick it up when I can do it. It's not a big issue, and that sells a lot of respect with your employees when they see that you're not afraid to do, or you're not above them by any measure. And again, management and a leadership role is not, yes, you are in an oversight capacity, but you want the people around you that you work with to understand that you're still accessible and approachable.
Thank you. How would you approach community engagement and outreach?
Community engagement and outreach. Well, again, like I says, the county administrator is the county's ambassador. You've got to get out there and work with the various townships and cities and businesses and organizations. And I'm actively involved at the airport on several levels. And in fact, I openly welcome any time to go and speak with various organizations. I've spoken with Rotary, I've spoken with Econ Club, I've worked with the LSCP, worked with Travel Marquette. I work with all of the various organizations at the airport. We do have a handful of businesses that we work with, and now working with the Water Wastewater Department, we do have some synergies or shared work-related items with Forsyth Township, so we routinely communicate with them when it comes to water and wastewater workings. I equally work with the airlines, so to circle back, and I'm just kind of hitting what I've done currently, again, to be the ambassador of the community or the county, I would make it very evident that I would be engaging with all of the businesses and the key players throughout the community to make sure that Marquette County is transparent and transmitting to these groups what our role is, what our intentions are, and working with them to make sure that there's a good partnership between the various organizations.
Knowing what you know from your knowledge and or research of Marquette County, what do you think the board should focus on in the next several months?
The next several months. Well, there's again, Marquette County is a very complex county. It's not as a cut and dry particular item or items. I think it's a broader question relating to specific items, but again, that encompass the entire county. Like I said earlier, I think some of the points of interest that the county needs to continue to focus on is namely with the housing issue. That's an ongoing issue. Again, I think current employment, making sure that we're staying engaged. We know that a lot of our industries are not infinite, they're finite, and that they need to continue to be engaged with to make sure that we're providing them the proper guidance, and maybe not the guidance, but proper input, and being able to address some of their concerns, because again, we are equally direct conduit for communications with our legislators and the state representatives, so that we would be able to work through that to help the local businesses. And again, some of the ongoing concerns that we're going to have to work with, again, the forever chemicals, connectivity to the region, and well, yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, there's a slew of them, but that's a handful of them, a couple of them, anyways.
Okay, thank you. You're working with a team member who doesn't agree with your solution to the problem. How do you handle it?
Well, negotiations is always a good start. You want to talk through the problem. You know, when you're ultimately the team or the two players have to come to a solution on what the end game, what the end result is. I would say to start off is you got to make sure that the end result is what we're both shooting for. Make sure that his or her result is not different than my result or my intentions with that issue or problem. And then we just have to strategize, walk through it step by step. You know, again, there's the old proverbial statement as there's how many ways to skin a cat. There are a lot of ways to address problems. You just got to look at it, evaluate it, make sure that there is a potential that you're wrong and that you may have to compromise in what the ultimate role or decision on how to address the problem. I'm never afraid to say that, yes, you're right, I'm wrong, with an issue, as long as that it can be proven with some justifications. But again, it's working through a problem. Start off with the end solution or the end result, and then work your way, see which problem or which method is going to be most effective and efficient for the organization.
Okay, thank you. Tell me about the situation where your initial solution didn't work.
You know, I have a particular subject that relates to is some of the commissioners may recall there was a time when we at the airport we applied for a federal grant to get a new snow boom through a manufacturer, and we pursued it. We were initially awarded the grant. We began the process of the construction of the equipment, and ultimately the FAA came in. Early on, they came in and said there was some bid protests. We addressed all of the questions that the particular entity had requested. We felt that we did an adequate response to those questions. Ultimately, the FAA came in and stated to us that the grant was going to be expired. They were going to terminate it due to the fact that they felt that we did not comply correctly with it. It was not an easy solution. We agreed with it. You gotta look at the broader picture. The old saying is you gotta keep your powder dry. When you look at the result of that, yes, we could have continued down the road and fought to try to right what we thought was wrong. But we also had to look at the simple fact that these are organizations that we have to work with in the future. And yes, this was a pricey expenditure, but when you look at down the road into the future on what we're going to be asking for and some of the other components that we're going to need to pull together on this, it was prudent for us just to say, yes, we'll accept your result. We don't agree with it, but we accept it, knowing that we're going to ultimately have to come back to you for other projects and other funding levels. So that was a time where we had to tuck tail and say, yes, we agree, but we don't agree.
Okay, thank you. You arrive at a community meeting. You're leading to discuss a new project, but none of the printed materials were delivered. Attendees are arriving and someone is already asking questions. You have no access to a printer, projector. What do you do?
You know, that's kind of crazy. That's happened. That's happened actually quite recently to myself. I was asked to speak at a group, and I worked quite feverishly over the course of a handful of weeks to put together a presentation, only to save it on my computer. Imagine that, save on your computer, should be there. To open it up and find out that the draft copy that was there was a draft copy, but it wasn't what I initially had pitched as the full presentation. Fortunately, I like to believe I come prepared to some measure. I was able to work through the problem. I knew what I was talking about. I think that's one of the key things about any presentation or any proposal that you provide. You need to be prepared and you need to know what you're talking about. Rest assured, even if you have the full presentation, all with the slides and all, if you don't really know what you're talking about, they're gonna know it. Anybody can fumble through a slideshow and read the bullet points and just get it across. I myself, I try to be as well prepared so that in the event of such incident, I'm able to perform at least at a acceptable level and provide the presentation. Granted, if I had time, resources are nice. The cell phone is also an equally useful tool for retrieval. Not necessarily pulling it off your computer, but you can always pick up your phone and hopefully you have supporting staff someplace that they could potentially tap into some of your current archives or into your files, and they can, at the very least, email you what some of the key components to it. You know, their technology plays in your favor in a lot of ways, but it equally is challenging because it works in both directions. So that being said, I would say number one, don't go to a presentation that you're given unprepared. Be willing to be able to know that there's a chance that your presentation might not always come through the way it's supposed to. And number two is knowing who to call. That's another good one. Having an ability to call somebody and say, I need some help. Send me what I can get, or send me what you can get. So.
Okay, thank you. List 3 reasons in order of importance why you wish to obtain the administrator's position.
List of importance. Well, there's number one, of course, there's some self-serving interests, I'll be the first to say. And it's primarily because it's a challenge that I feel I'm up for. I would love to be able to engage in this role because I think it's very challenging, and I think I would do a wonderful job. At least I hope I do a wonderful job. Number two is, I think for the Marquette County taxpayer, they deserve only the best. And I'm not saying that the other candidates are not better than I am. They may very well come to the table with more credentials and the ability to perform the job equal or better than I. But Marquette County deserves only the best, and I feel that I would be qualified for that position. Third reason is, third reason.
What pays more?
Pay is always, I would agree that, I do agree that the pay is an increase, but I don't think the taxpayers at the end of the day necessarily want you to hire somebody because they just want to make more money. I think the taxpayers are really looking for somebody who is best suited for the role. And again, I look at this, this board doesn't have to look very far to look at my past experience. I would welcome any time in going past or even forward that this board hold me to the task. As a county administrator, if I were selected, I would expect this board at specific stages to pull out and say, we need to do a report card on it. Tell me how, so I know how I'm doing, and to make sure that I'm providing the taxpayers the service that they deserve. And ultimately, we are all servants for the taxpayer. I tell my staff that all the time. The airport does not sell anything. All we provide is customer service. And they don't always like when I say that. I'm a strong believer that when bell rings at 8 o'clock in the morning, if somebody calls the airport at 8 o'clock in the morning, that phone should be answered. And we should be ready to go right then and there, because that's when we open. The staff, again, they don't always agree with me, and that's all right. That's all right. There are certain scenarios where I'll agree with their position that, yeah, we gotta flex a little bit. But again, we are public servants. That's what we are. We're not selling something that if you don't like it, you can go someplace else. We're Marquette County. If you live in Marquette County, that's the service we should be providing, is only the best that we can. So.
Thank you. So just a couple questions left. If selected, when can you start?
Well, that's something that I think there is going to be a spool of time. As you folks understand, I am currently actively engaged with the water, wastewater, and the airport, and I think that's the airport. Both of those departments will hold a special spot for me because I've really embraced the organizations, and I've totally enjoyed working with them. I would suspect that there's going to be a little bit of time that I would have to divide my time between the administrative position and the airport and the water department while we spool up. We did recently bring on a gentleman as the new assistant airport manager. He is by far the best decision I've made in a long time. He has proven himself to be energetic, engaging, smart, willing to take on new challenges. So at least in the interim, I would suspect that I could take on the role to some measure. There would be a transition. I'm thinking, again, probably a 90-day window where I'm going to have to divide up time so that we don't lose sight of the goals at the airport and the water department while we're refocusing. But again, I would say, I could start almost immediately, but again, in a percentage approach until we are well situated at the airport. Again, my assistant, my thoughts on that would directly be to at least put him as an interim airport manager. When I first came to Marquette, I was given the airport manager position. I wasn't hired as an assistant, I was an airport manager. My director at the time, he pretty much walked into my office when I first got there and he says, "Duane, the airport's yours. You're the airport person. It's yours." And I took that ball and I ran with it. I think under the proper guidance and direction, this young man that we got now, he's showing the ability to do this. I would just hate to abandon him, and I don't like that term. I would want to be able to thread him into it and give him a little bit of time to become engaged in it a little further. He's been engaging in a lot of aspects, so again, it would take a little bit of time, but rest assured, if appointed, I would definitely dive right in. But I would hope that the board would take into consideration that the airport and the water department are still key players in the organization as a whole. We don't want to lose sight on one for the other. We want to make sure that we do this in a balanced and strategic approach so that everything seems as smooth and as seamless as at all possible. And again, with the wastewater department, we have key people over there. Mr. Nick Hadamaki, who is the supervisor, he is I wouldn't say a diamond in the rough. I'm saying he's a shiny gem. He knows the wastewater departments, and he is well aware of my intentions or my venture into this pool. So he understands that as we shift forward, if I was so successful to be appointed as the county administrator, that his role would expand a little bit. We'd also have to augment that with some other various steps, because I know Nick is still very engaged in a lot of things. I think there's some of the higher level stuff that we could transition to other department heads. I know planning would be a key player, because planning is taking a more active role out at Sawyer, and I think with some approach to that, there might be an ability, at least for the short term, to augment that until we could come up with a solid plan moving forward. So I don't know if that answered the question. Yes and no. I would be engaged right away, but again, under the understanding that we don't want to just leave one department or two departments without transition time.
Okay, one last question. If hired, how long do you see yourself working in Marquette County as administrator?
That's a good question. I would hope as long as the Board of Commissioners want me. I don't see myself. I don't see myself going anyplace, anytime. You can ask anybody one question, and I've been asked this a handful of times. What do you have for hobbies? And I sit back and I think, and I says, I work. And a lot of people, there are a lot of people, and everybody is their own person. A lot of people say, well, I can't wait till I'm retired. I like to work. Retirement, to some measure, frightens me, because that means I don't have anything to do. I would finish everything I needed to get done at my house in 2 weeks, and then I'd be sitting there twiddling my thumbs. Again, I would suspect I would be easily 10 years. I wouldn't have an issue with a 10-year stint, because I'm fully engaged. I think it would be a really good opportunity and a challenge.
Thank you, Duane. So we have a couple minutes left before we break for a brief 5 minutes before the next interview. Do you have anything you'd like to add
I have a couple more questions.
over the next?
I have a couple more
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
So-
So you're gonna ask those questions
I am.
all?
Sure.
Okay,
So here's a couple of things. So are you open to a multi-year contract, like say a 3-year contract?
Yes.
Okay. And we advertised this job for $125,000 to $165,000. What do you suggest as a starting wage? And the reason I say that, and I'll tell you why, and I'll tell all of the three the same thing. I don't like that we choose somebody, then we go negotiate with them, and then we don't have much of a negotiating power because we already chose them. So I want to know what you think is a good starting wage in between 125 and 165. What do you propose? And with that, if you propose an increase each year for those 3 years.
Boy, that's a really good question. I never really put a lot of thought into that. Well, if it's 125 to 165.
Yes, depending on your experience, and that's kind of.
Depending on my experience, honestly, I would be happy if we found a middle ground in there between the 125 and 165. I would be opposed to, let's just hypothetically say 140.
Okay.
And again, I say this openly. I think this board should actively, regardless of who's in the position, should actively do a report card on the person to make sure that they're performing to the level that they need to perform and accomplishing the things that they need to accomplish, and how that would address in an incremental increase. I think it really depends on the standard or the outcome of the person. If I would say, I've done this at my previous position, is if I'm not performing to the standard, well then that should be equally reflective on the compensation. Not that I'm trying to market that you guys got the wage down to 50,000 after the first 3 months, but I'm just saying I'm just saying that I think that's a hard question to put a number to, because again, I think it should be performance based on.
Okay. So you're saying, you're thinking 140,000 meet in the middle and then have performance-based increases?
I would agree, yes.
And then the last thing I guess I wanted to know is are you okay with the same fringe benefits as the other employees? The reason I ask that is that I hate to see someone come back and then say, well, I want 100 vacation days or something. Well, I want to know if you're okay with the same fringe benefit package that you already have.
That I'm currently having. Well, you know what? Again, this is. I don't know how many vacation days I get. I can tell you, I take a lot less than I get. I wish to some measure, I wish I didn't, because sometimes I think vacations are important that you get away. But that being said, I wouldn't be opposed to the current fringe benefits. I think the level of the benefit package currently is a good benefit package that's being addressed. Now there is a couple things I may address that I think would be something that may be necessary as a county administrator. I know the airport, I don't do a lot of roundabouts. You know, I'm pretty close to the airport. I don't do a lot of driving around. I do a fair amount, but not a lot. I think if my role is going to be engaging with a lot of other community activities and events, there may be something. Granted, I know we have a per diem, or not per diem, but we have mileage. That might be something I would want to take a closer look at. But short of that, I don't see anything that would pop right out that I would say, no, I want 100 days off, and I don't want to have to come in until 11:30 in the morning. And I would be satisfied, at least at this stage, with the current benefit package.
Okay, thank you. We got to wrap up based on time. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for your interview, Mr. DuRay. I appreciate your efforts, and thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
And we appreciate what you do at Sawyer, by the way. It doesn't go unnoticed.